Welcome to the 2020 SNAP Employment and Training National Forum session, Social Distancing as a Skill Set in a COVID Environment. My name is Josh McDaniel. I'm the Employment and Training Program Analyst in the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service Mountain Plains Regional Office. I'll be serving as your moderator today. Today you'll be hearing a presentation from Candace Borges-White, Ramona Mundwiller, Les Johnson, and Stephen Ingram. Candace is the BankWorks program manager with Goodwill of Colorado. BankWorks is an intensive 8-week training program for adults with barriers to employment that are seeking a career in the financial services industry. Ramona Mundwiller is the Grants Administration Director at the Missouri Community College Association, or MCCA. Ramona has been with MCCA for nearly 7 years and has been managing the Skill Up program for college participation for nearly 3 years. Along with Skill Up, she manages a community development block grant for Missouri's Jobs for America's Graduates program. She has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Central Methodist University. Les Johnson is the Vice President of Family Support Initiatives for the Area Resources for Community and Human Services, or ARCHES, in St. Louis. Les earned his Master's of Social Work degree from the George Warren Brown School of Social Work at Washington University in St. Louis, with an emphasis in organizational management and social and economic development. Stephen Ingram serves as the Senior Director of Workforce Development for Better Family Life Incorporated in St. Louis, Missouri. Stephen has more than 20 years of experience working in social services across 4 states and is a graduate of Lindenwood University. So as a way to kind of start us off for this session, SNAP ENT is a top priority for USDA leadership. They understand that the power of a good job and the dignity that that job has as a way to improve people's lives. In fact, our leadership sees the ENT program as an economic tool that impacts the fight to end poverty, hunger, homelessness, recidivism, just to name a few. Through ENT, we not only impact the individual, we impact their family, the communities they live in, the state, and ultimately the nation. In employment and training, the focus is on the individuals being placed in good jobs and increasing their wages and ultimately moving them to self-sufficiency. As we all know, COVID has created waves that are rippling through the economy with record high unemployment and industry-specific effects that disproportionately impact low-income workers. Leading in a caring, empathetic manner during these difficult times has the potential to create real connections that will outlive the social and economic impacts of the pandemic. Socially conscious organizations across sectors and geographies are finding ways to get involved and support their customers and communities. Today, we're going to hear about innovative strategies the panelists have incorporated in their organization's service delivery models to continue operations for SNAP ENT participants into what may be this new normal that we're all living in. We thank you for joining today's session. Please remember that any discussions today do not reflect official USDA policy guidance. As you view the presentations, please ask your questions through the Q&A feature on the Zoom taskbar and add your comments in the chat box below. At the conclusion of the presentations, the presenters will have the opportunity to address your questions. So let's begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Candace Borges-White, and I am the BankWorks Program Manager for Goodwill of Colorado. Next slide, please. Goodwill's mission is to help people achieve greater personal and economic independence. Goodwill of Colorado is consistently ranked as one of the top 10 Goodwills in the United States and Canada for the number of people that we place in jobs each year. We make a significant and positive impact to our communities through our workforce development programs. And you see we have numerous that we offer in the state of Colorado as indicated on the slide. Next slide, please. Today we're going to focus on 2 programs. First is our Works Ready program, and secondarily our BankWorks program. Next slide. Works Ready was our immediate response to COVID-19. In Colorado, we were placed under a stay-at-home order, as many of you were, and we knew that we had the resources that we could utilize to help individuals affected by COVID get back to work. And so the first thing that we did was identify the resources that we had and the best way to reach into our communities. And we developed the Works Ready program. Next slide. So what is Works Ready? Works Ready is a free online job readiness training program, as I mentioned before, created within weeks of our stay-at-home order here in Colorado in response to COVID-19. And our goal was to help job seekers re-enter the workforce as quickly as possible. Classes were taught by experienced instructors via Zoom, and our curriculum included key topics such as professionalism, interview skills, resume writing, and the much needed soft skills individuals would utilize to not just land a job, but to maintain employment long term. Once again, we felt compelled due to the unprecedented unemployment that we react quickly and offer training in a new and different format than we had before, with the goal of boosting confidence and job readiness skills in our community. We offer Works Ready to any individual across the state free of charge. To participate, an individual only needs to agree to attend all of the Zoom sessions, participate fully, and they must have access to a computer, laptop, or smartphone and have internet connectivity. Next slide. We are pleased to say that we saw immediate positive response from our participants, and we got people back to work. You'll see there that Max indicated that his participation in the program helped him to regain his confidence and to continue to grow as a young professional when he was let go from the hospitality industry. And you also see that Miles indicated that this awakened his inspiration and helped him to see the possibilities for success in his future. So we are pleased that the Works Ready program continues to reach across our state and connect employers with job ready individuals. Next slide, please. In addition, we wanted to be able to continue our BankWorks program. Next slide. BankWorks is an 8-week intensive training program for individuals that are interested in careers in the financial services industry. We knew that our financial services industry partners still needed to connect with a pipeline of qualified candidates. BankWorks is just that. It is a connector. We connect adults from low-income communities to employers in the financial services industry. We work directly with local partners, offering free training to qualified candidates. This is an intensive 8-week training program, as I previously mentioned, with placement assistance and ongoing coaching. We create access to lasting careers that help our participants, our communities, and our employers succeed. We provide support to adults to not just land that job, but quickly master the positions that they're hired into and take advantage of opportunities for growth. Next slide. BankWorks has grown. We started the BankWorks program in 2006 in LA, and due to the success, many of our partners invested in the nationwide rollout of the program. We currently serve 14 markets across the US and are looking to continue to expand, as we know that we are meeting a need for our employer partners and changing the lives of our participants. Next slide. So how do our participants benefit from participating in the program? They are taught industry-specific skills for on-the-job success. And we focus on the soft skills that we know will help them thrive anywhere, personally and professionally. We provide opportunities for personal and career growth, and we know that this contributes to self-sufficiency and improved confidence amongst our participants. We provide employment opportunities for full-time positions with opportunities for growth, benefits, and multiple career paths. Our partners partner with us in each market that we serve, and they invest in our program financially as well as investing volunteer time. Our partners have a vested interest in hiring our graduates. And we know that we are creating role models for our families and our communities. Our financial institutions benefit greatly from this program as well. We create a pipeline for them of qualified, job-ready candidates. We are addressing the remedial training needs that oftentimes are difficult to address on the job. So individuals are ready to get to work and master the positions that they're hired into. We facilitate employee loyalty, and we see that in our very high retention rates at both 6 and 12 months at over 80%, much higher than industry standards. Our banks are investing in their local communities and connecting with underserved communities and seeing a high return on that investment. Next slide, please. So what did we do? We knew that we could no longer provide in-person 8-week training in response to COVID. And so we began looking at a blended curriculum delivery model and uploaded all of our curriculum into a user-friendly learning management system that really resembles many of the learning management systems that our financial service industry partners are using. We also recognized that we had a new skill set that we needed to train, and that was social distancing in the workplace and ensuring that our participants were comfortable with best practices and protocols in response to COVID when they entered the workforce. So we have best practices and protocols in place, and our participants are trained on them and agree to comply with them throughout our training. We did have to limit our classroom sizes, so we offered more classes in different areas to ensure proper social distancing. We required face coverings for our participants and our instructors, and we reduced the number of hours that we were in the classroom. Our instructors were utilizing voice amplifiers to ensure that we could have people spread out and it would not interrupt our ability to teach. We conduct daily health assessments and temperature checks. We are committed as a group to maintaining good hygiene, and we clean and sanitize every 2 hours. Once again, we are emulating the corporate environment, the bank environment in the classroom. Next slide. So now that we look back, as difficult as it may have been to quickly adapt our program, what we are confident of is that BankWorks 3.0, which is our response to COVID, has made our program better. And just like many of you, we believe that there is certainly a silver lining, and the benefit to our participants and our employers is great. We have enhanced our competencies with our new delivery system. Our participants now have gained the skill set and the ability to navigate online systems and cloud-based systems. They have the ability to have a strong presence virtually as well as in person with face coverings. We've had to learn new ways of connecting with our internal and external customers, and we're practicing that in the classroom, but also virtually. Our participants are demonstrating the skill set that we know our employers need in response to COVID-19: resilience, flexibility, and the ability to adapt to an ever-changing environment. In addition, they are self-driven and demonstrating the ability to manage our blended curriculum delivery system and be self-motivated and self-driven in gaining the skill sets that are going to help them to be successful on the job. What we have done is we have recognized that there are certain abilities and skills that we need to practice in person, and we've brought those into the classroom. But those things that can be done virtually and online to ensure safety and to enhance that skill set, we are now doing online. Next slide, please. And so really we see that we offer three key areas of training. One, soft skills, ensuring that our graduates understand what is expected in a corporate training environment and demonstrate professionalism, the ability to listen and be empathetic, that they have strong problem-solving skills, and that they value ethics and integrity. We know that we're also delivering those industry-specific hard skills, that they understand banking regulations, products, services, how to meet the needs of our customers. And then we've added this third component in the green. Now we know that they're also going to have the computer proficiency that's going to be required as we move forward. And so we've implemented online test taking, online applications, cloud navigation. They now understand how to submit work online, how to move through self-guided learning modules, and how to interact online with different communities. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit about how we have responded to COVID. You'll see my contact information there on the screen. If you're interested in learning more about the BankWorks program or anything that we talked about here today, please, I look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. And Josh, thank you for my introduction at the beginning of this session. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to share information about the Missouri Community College Association and its relationship with the community colleges. And then I'm going to dive into our ENT program called Skill Up. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic. So let's get started. Next slide. Missouri's 12 community colleges are independent of each other and not in a system like what you may see in other states. Each college is run by a president or chancellor and is overseen by a board of trustees. That means that MCCA plays an important role to the colleges. For nearly 60 years, the association has advocated for the colleges at the state and national level. And through its mission of advocacy, professional development, and collaboration, it serves as a voice and subject matter expert for the institutions, the administrations, and staff. Through the association's collaboration pillar, we bring the colleges together as a team or consortium to administer grant programs like Skill Up. And this model has really been very successful. It has provided the colleges with the opportunity to develop subject matter expertise, best practices, and actually to learn from each other. Next slide, please. Missouri, as I mentioned earlier, has 12 community colleges, and this map really breaks down the colleges by service area. My point behind sharing it is so you can see that the colleges really cover Missouri, which means that education is really accessible to all Missourians. Next slide, please. MCCA began participating in the Skill Up program in 2016. That was our pilot year. At that point, we had 2 colleges participating. Since then, all of the community colleges have participated in the program. The program goal is to engage participants in short-term training, and that would be a year or less, that provides jobs that are in demand and that provide a wage that may eventually lead to independence. The colleges have been, they've actually been successful in enrolling participants in these types of programs and assisting with securing employment. And that's because the colleges already focus on skills training. And they also have long-standing relationships with the businesses in the communities they serve. These colleges, some have been around for more than 100 years, and they're really built into the fabric of the communities. MCCA is the lead organization for Skill Up and contracts with the colleges. We manage the financial, programmatic, and monitoring components of the program. We've developed processes and procedures, resources and tools, and provide the support that colleges need to be successful in this program. They really are doing the heavy lifting. In order to share our successes, ideas, and best practices, we hold monthly meetings and ask for quarterly reporting from the colleges. Each college staffs at least one Skill Up case manager who meets with and enrolls participants into the program. Other college staff play a role in the Skill Up program as well, and that includes department coordinators, instructors, and career coaches. They assist with retention and completion, class enrollment, post-training follow-up, and job placement. They all work together to catch potential problems before a student may have to drop. And even though the participants we serve are ready for training, meaning that the majority of them have housing and reliable transportation, there are always unforeseeable life issues that come up that may impact a student's participation. And that's why the additional college staff play an important role in this program. We case manage the participants through training and up to 3 months after securing a job to ensure that they are good to go and really don't need any other additional services. We offer college training. The offerings that we, the college trainings that we offer align with each college's local workforce investment board strategy. And we're mostly focusing on transportation and healthcare trainings, but there are some others that we are seeing. Tuition includes books, fees, testing, those sorts of things. And for any other supportive service need, we are going to refer them to another provider. Next slide, please. I've set the stage for our program. And prior to March, we were enrolling participants at a pretty rapid pace. Like many other providers, our case managers would meet with participants in person to enroll in the Skill Up program with paper forms or to have them test for skills. And participants, some of them would even attend orientations in person. And obviously training sessions were also carried out in person. It's difficult to attend a CDL class without being in the truck. So those were all in person, and the labs and the clinicals were held in person at approved provider locations. Next slide, please. The pandemic hit in March during the college's spring break. The colleges used this time to develop their emergency and interim plans, and then really to allow staff to move to working remotely. Soon after, all students were notified that campuses would remain closed and all classes would restart virtually. Some classes restarted immediately, and some needed some time to revamp their curriculum for distance learning. Labs and clinicals were put on hold until safe social distancing guidelines could be developed. In a few cases, we're still working with state and local agencies to work out clinical providers for participants who are not already working at a healthcare provider. Our immediate goals for the Skill Up program were to make sure this transition did not negatively impact our participants. Our case managers contacted every single participant to ensure they had the technology they needed to access what they needed to continue to participate in the program. Hotspots and computers were provided where needed, and Wi-Fi was available in some school parking lots. We provided recordings of online classes for those students who really had timing conflicts. All this because we really wanted to make sure that our students did not get lost, did not lose track, and have to drop. Then we needed to ensure that staff had what they needed to work remotely and to continue to enroll or at least stay in touch with their participants. I mean, these were the participants' lifeline to this program. It was a pretty large undertaking and dealt with things that we take for granted, like the computer on your desk, the phone on your desk, paper file access, system access, and really confidentiality. While the college program managers worked through that process, I set out to develop guidance and processes for case managers to continue to enroll participants. To eliminate the potential of sharing confidential information via paper forms while people were working remotely in their homes, and to make it less burdensome for participants, we eliminated the use of paper forms. We took a look at our documents and eliminated unnecessary items. We created PDF forms with the remaining documents. We eliminated signatures as well. We really didn't want there to be a barrier for participants to enroll, and eliminating signatures was one of them. We also didn't want to email items to a participant with no way for them to complete it, print it out, things like that. We were not going to mail paper forms to participants either. So we really asked the case managers to either use PDF fillable documents online or to enroll participants directly into the data platform that we use. Next slide, please. Fast forward to October, and it really, I'm going to say it really is not post-COVID. I'm going to call it post-initial impact, because I think this is going to be around for a while. And for the most part, the colleges continue to provide their education or curriculum online. Some classes are back in person, like CDL and welding. But, and of course, they have social distancing measures in place. Most college staff are back on campus, again, with workspaces being reconfigured to allow for social distancing. And as I mentioned in the last slide, we did create guidance for enrolling participants in the program, and participants are enrolled right now via Zoom or telephone. And the in-person orientations that were taking place were scaled back. They were reviewed, they were scaled back, and those are also done via Zoom over the course of a couple of hours instead of 2 or 3 days. I also want to mention that we were in the middle of a digital outreach campaign when the pandemic began. Of course, we decided to put it on hold to give the colleges time to determine their next steps. Our summer enrollments, however, rose to pre-COVID levels. We're nearing the 200 mark for enrollments this year. And while the increase was a surprise, it was a stark reminder that there are many people out there that found themselves in need of a new start in our help. While we've been in the pandemic for several months now, again, I believe it's a fluid situation. We could, at any time, return back to the initial stages of everybody going back to work from home. But we know now to expect the unexpected, right? And we're equipped to do that because we've learned that we're flexible and collaborative and can communicate in other ways besides in person. That saying, the mother of invention, well, I don't know that saying. I'll have to think about that. I had it on my tongue earlier, but you get the idea. Really, all this is going to, necessity is the mother of invention. That's what I was thinking of. All this will really serve us well as we move through the next several months and maybe even the next year. That is my presentation. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to, if you have questions for me, please feel free to post them at the end of this session. And you have my email address on the screen.
Thanks, Josh, for the introduction. Again, my name is Les Johnson, and I will be joined by my co-presenter, Mr. Stephen Ingram from Better Family Life. First, I'd like to provide you with an overview of Arches and just who we are in our business model. So on the next slide, our business model, we are Arches. We're one of 19 community-based organizations or service delivery agencies who operate out of the Caring Communities model in St. Louis, Missouri. We operate we are the largest provider of education and human service programs on the eastern side of the state. We're not a direct service provider. We are an intermediary, and therefore, in order to deliver services to the least of these in our region, we partner annually with over 200 partners who range from community-based organizations, local governments, and also institutions of higher learning to provide education and human service programs across the St. Louis region. The next slide will provide you with an overview of just how we're funded. And so the majority of our funding flows directly from either state and or federal agencies, but we also receive funding from private philanthropic organizations too. And with the funds that we receive, we're able to really make an impact on communities and impact families that are disadvantaged and are really having a tough time at it. One way that we identify the partners that we work with is that partners have an opportunity to reach out to us directly. And so from time to time, we will receive letters of intent from service delivery organizations. They will identify a subject that they are passionate about or where they have a competency or track record, could be school-aged workforce development or early childhood. And we engage those organizations to identify their core competencies and look at the capacities that they bring to the table in order to deliver services. One way in which we support and work with those partners that we bring to the table is to provide them with ongoing technical assistance, professional development, and then providing strategic support and oversight to ensure that the funder is getting the best bang for their buck, making sure that there's a return on investment that the funder can be proud of, and then also at the same time, making sure that the agencies that we bring to the table live up to the deliverables and scopes of work that have been identified through a performance-based contract. The next slide will illustrate for you what we're really proud of as it relates to our workforce development programs supporting SNAP recipients. And so we are also working with our state-funded agencies to support SNAP recipients as those individuals who are ready to transition from SNAP and move into the workplace. And so as you can see, we've got 5 organizations that we contract with, and they serve as our contracted service delivery partners. And they range in size and scale and scope. Some organizations, for instance, America Works and the Urban League, have a national footprint. America Works operates primarily with their headquarters in New York, and of course, the Urban League being a national organization. But then we also bring to bear organizations who are smaller in scale, who are more community-based, such as Employment Connection and Mission St. Louis. Employment Connection really has done a tremendous job working with those individuals who are homeless, those individuals who are just as involved, while Mission St. Louis has developed an expertise and a true reputation for engaging those individuals who are actively involved in gangs or who are former gang members. And then Better Family Life is one of our boots on the ground grassroots organizations who you'll hear from a little later in this presentation, who's really developed a lot of what I would consider community cachet. They've developed a reputation for serving members of the community that they are housed in, and they do a great job. And we'll hear more about that organization later on in the presentation. The next slide that we will transition to speaks to what we experienced as we were implementing over the summer our employment and training program and how we were impacted by COVID-19. What we saw immediately out of the gate was an increased demand for just basic essential supports by families. Families were finding themselves running out of food, needing basic utility and rental assistance. And so we had to shift gears. It's difficult to work with families and talk about going to work if families are experiencing a loss of utility assistance, or they need rental assistance, or they need basic supports. So we work to identify ways to bring those basic supports to families first before talking to them about employment opportunities. We also saw during this period increased social isolation and exposure to trauma. Families were concerned about this new thing called COVID-19, the coronavirus, not knowing how to respond to it, not knowing what the future would bring as it related to employment outlooks for them. And so we knew that we would have to figure out a way to deal with that social isolation and work with families in a different manner and adapt to meet the needs of those individuals. We also saw intergenerational loss of employment and income at a higher level. And so now you have a mom living with her mother. So you have maybe in some cases 2 to 3 generations living under the same household. All of those individuals in need of employment, all of those individuals in need of basic assistance to help them make it through the week. We also saw, and it's not surprising, higher rates of transitioning from underemployed to unemployed. And so many of the individual SNAP participants who come to our service providers seeking assistance with employment and training opportunities, some of them have, about a third of them are employed and they are earning minimum wage. And in this instance, a lot of those individuals now had lost those jobs due to COVID-19. They were essential and frontline workers and no longer had access to employment. And so there were some things that we had to deal with as well. And then also the very real fear of contracting COVID-19 in the workplace. It was the same fear that you and I would have as we were moving and trying to navigate through all of this within the workplace. The SNAP participants were having the same fears and realizations that they could be impacted as well and not even know. And at that time, it wasn't widely known in terms of how to access testing sites, who should be tested, what was the protocol, et cetera. And so it made for a very anxious time for a population who was already having a lot of difficulties navigating life on a day-to-day basis. And then also for those individuals who we were successful in placing in jobs through our partnering organizations, those workplaces that they were, those work sites where they were working, all of a sudden we're experiencing COVID-19 exposure as well. And then also within the St. Louis City and St. Louis County and other surrounding municipalities, put in place the mandatory stay-at-home shelter-in-place requirements. Therefore, our SNAP recipients were not able to return to those work sites. Many of those were warehouse jobs. Many of those were essential workers working in restaurants, retail, et cetera. And so you can imagine the mental anxiety that those individuals were experiencing as a result of this. The next slide will attempt to demonstrate what changed for us and then how we had to adapt to those changes. And so our partner service delivery adaptation looked a little like this. And so because we knew that during this period, we may potentially lose some of our participants, ARCHES, we put in place a mandatory intensive case management protocol that really mandated twice weekly wellness check-ins with participants and their families, just to check in with families to see how things were going. Do you need assistance with food? Do you need assistance with utilities, et cetera? Have you been able to identify housing? How are the children doing? How are they coping? Just making sure that the families were doing okay, both socially and emotionally. And then the home delivery of meals due to COVID-19 impact on, due to COVID-19 because of COVID-19's impact on public transportation. A lot of the public transportation here in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, the bus schedules were shut down in some cases, lines were reduced. So there were less options for those individuals without their own transportation and getting around and accessing those basic necessities. And so our community-based partners, albeit they were primarily at the table to provide training and employment opportunities for individuals, they quickly made the transition and really went out of their way to do home delivery of meals to make sure that families were able to meet, again, addressing some of the basic assistance that families needed. Again, no surprise here, increased usage of social media and virtual platforms to engage the workforce participants. Everything from looking at the initial one-on-one introductions and soft skills programs using a virtual platform. And in those virtual platforms, what we saw was that not only were some of the traditional programs, program components being offered virtually, but also those virtual platforms transition into kind of informal support groups for participants. And they were able to form their own support groups, identify what the issues were for them as they were trying to maneuver during this very difficult time, and build their own network and identify other sources of assistance that could be put in place to assist them. And again, we really were not sure how we were going to move forward and how we were going to keep pace, but we were able to make it happen, supporting our partners, making sure that they received the technical assistance that they needed as well in order to make this adaptation and transition to a virtual platform as well, because we know that the case managers and all of the folks that were providing the employment services, they also were experiencing some of the same anxieties and dealing with some of the same issues as the participants to some degree. And then lastly, we saw an increased communication and trust that was built with the ARCH's workforce partners. And so the partners or the participants saw the workforce partners as not just an extension of the state attempting to get them to transition off of public benefits, but they also saw them as a partner, a community partner, a trusted community partner. And it allowed for there to be a level of trust built there, a level of community cachet built. And so that synergy that was developed, we're seeing now the benefits of that, because now those families are coming to our workforce partners seeking access to employment and training programs as they are now ready to transition back into the workplace. The next slide, you will hear from Mr. Stephen Ingram as he will talk about the Better Family Life organization. And they truly are an example of boots on the ground and how this grassroots community adapted to meet the needs of Missouri's SNAP recipients. Stephen?
Thank you so much, Les, and thank you as well, Josh, for the introduction. The past 7 months have been extremely challenging, I think, for all of us, especially considering what we've endured. It's something that we never have in our lifetime. But what we knew at that point back in March was that we needed to move quickly. We realized what was coming, and we had to answer 4 questions very quick. We needed to figure out how we continue to serve and keep our customers that we had in our programs engaged and participating. We knew that we had to keep the pipeline of our resources and services open so that we could reach, so that those services and resources could reach those that were in need. We had to continue our outreach and recruitment efforts, but we had to do it with a high level of sensitivity so that everyone would understand that we weren't calling simply to talk about our program and things of that nature as much as it was to see how everyone was doing. And then lastly, we had to capture baseline data that would be used to inform our practice going forward. So what you'll see here, we did, and Les mentioned earlier, we increased our weekly contacts with our participants. That was critical because folks were being affected in different ways, but we wanted them to know that we were still here, that we would continue working with them, and that they could rely on us during this time. We began to offer virtual education training and job experiences. At that time, Zoom was not heavily on our radar in terms of what we were using, and quickly became a trusted friend in a way that we were able to connect with our participants, whether it be through Zoom, Facebook, Instagram, Google Meets, Google Class, you name it, we have been using it, and we found it very beneficial during those times. We began providing food and resources to our participants that were in need weekly. Since March, all the way up through today, we have continued in providing those different resources, whether they be food, PPE, or diapers, even food for pets, because we know that families are in need. We made outreach calls more personal as opposed to just a solicitation. We were astounded to find that when we were making our calls, the number of seniors that we actually reached, and to have them hear from us to say, hey, we were just thinking about you. We wanted to make sure that you were okay, see if you needed anything. It really went a long way, and it made folks' day often, and in return made our day. We implemented a COVID-19 survey to assess our customer stability and needs. And again, that survey information was used as baseline for us to be able to inform our practice moving forward. Next slide, please. During this time, we also found some success. It was important for us that we let our staff know that in challenging times, creative minds prevail. And even if we were a little shaken ourselves with what was going on, we knew that we still had to be out here serving those that were in need. So with that, we had a couple of participants that during the time of shutdown back in March, and so they actually were able to find employment with the assistance of our employment team. Ms. Hayes, who is a mother of one, came to our program, who eventually wound up completing her call center training that she did with us back in June, which was customer service training as well. But while she was in call center training, she actually received a position that they hired her under the condition that she would complete the training, and she did do that and received her certification. Ms. Anderson, who is also one of our participants, accepted a position right at the time that everything broke out back in March. And she was really rattled about being there in the facility that she was working because of the outbreak of COVID within her facility. And so with a lot of prayer and thought and consultation and whatnot, she decided to stay. And she has done a tremendous job since being there. And she was actually awarded an additional $5 of pay as being on the front lines during that time. Both of these young ladies are still employed and are doing quite well. Next slide. Where do we go from here? And I think that is the question that all of us are asking and trying to figure out as we move through this ever-changing landscape that we're in and trying to find some sense of normal in a normal time. What we know that we must do and that we have been doing since March is to continue to expand our virtual platforms and deploy multiple forms of technology to meet participants where they are. That is key for us so that our participants can remain in class, our participants can get the resources and things that they need, but then They can also connect with us, and we continue to ensure that they're on track with respect to the employment plan that they established when they came into our program. We learned that we need to have more participant input in our services. And that's something that I think we knew, but when we experienced the onset of the pandemic, we learned that it was truly affecting folks in different ways. And we could not be presumptuous, or there was no cookie cutter that could be used to determine what would best benefit someone at that time. So their input in what we were doing and be offering moving forward has been instrumental. Find creative ways and innovative ways to connect employers with skilled job seekers. This one was a major one for us because we knew that there was still going to be folks that were going to be at home, and we knew that the opportunities were going to present themselves, and we needed to be able to connect our participants with the opportunities that those employers had and have. One of the things that we have done here now is we have established a laptop loaner program. And with that, we're able to give our participants access to uses of laptops for those who do not have one, or because the children are at home doing virtual learning, they are taking control of the computers during the day. But this way, we can still ensure that our participants can connect with employers, they can connect with us, they can participate in virtual interviews and things of that nature. We had to identify ways to engage and support small business development. Coming up on this coming Monday, October the 5th, we will actually be having our first class back with our business startup program, which is for small businesses development and for microloans. So those who come into this 12-week program that we're having, they'll be able to create their business plan, get some great information, and then ultimately, possibly, be able to get a small loan to start up the business that they are wanting to start. This last one is a big one, and it is to remain flexible in our approach. It has been said that agility is the new currency for workforce development. Having the ability to stop on a dime and change course at any time. And with everything that's going on, that is extremely critical, I think, to all of us, because we don't know where things are going to go day to day. And so being flexible in our approach and our service delivery is absolutely vital. And that's what we have been adopting since everything has come on. Next slide. Here you'll find our contact information. Again, Les Johnson with Arches, and myself, Steve Ingram with Better Family Life. If you have any questions or if there's anything that we can provide, we'd love to help. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thank you all for just such great sessions. But before we begin the Q&A portion, just again like to thank the presenters for their time and addressing this very, very timely and interesting topic. I know the innovations that they've had to continue their service delivery really was critical, and ultimately there's helped a lot of people get through and find employment during this troubling time. So at this time, we'll pose questions from the attendees that we've been collecting throughout the presentation. Please note that you can still submit your questions through the Q&A feature.